Hello, today on my channel you will hear an amazing story about life. I hope you enjoy this story. This one struck me to the core. Honestly, I still can't forget it. Enjoy watching.
Jenny and Selena were complete opposites, probably why they were drawn to each other for years. Playing in the same sandbox continued with Selena's tantrum when it was revealed that they would be going to different groups in kindergarten. In this regard, after a short persuasion of the kindergarten staff and some of the parents, the girlfriends were assigned to the same group. There was no talk of different schools, and although Selena did not have enough knowledge and abilities, but the lessons with the tutor, father's connections, and Jenny's assurances to help her friend in her studies determined her in the gymnasium with advanced study of foreign languages. Selena immediately became the soul and the leader of the class, and very soon acquired a lot of new friends and acquaintances, while Jenny modestly chewed the grand of science for herself and her friend. But Selena had to give credit. Despite all her popularity and universal adoration, and love friend was in first place. If Jenny couldn't go to another party or camping trip, Selena would also refuse the event. Taking advantage of their such a strong friendship, many people tried to influence the girls through each other. Through Selena, they asked Jenny to help them with their studies, and through Jenny, they asked Jenny to take them to some private, members-only party. "You and I, Jenny, we will make mountains together," laughed Selena, hugging her friend. Of course, Selena was the first to date boys, and it was not surprising. Bright appearance, light cheerful character, and clothes on the latest peak youth fashion attracted the opposite sex as a magnet. Young people were over the moon with happiness when the girl agreed to go with them to the movies, cafes, or just dance at the school festival. They were not even opposed to communicating with Jenny, just to be closer to the object of adoration. And only Selena was the only one who saw the true beauty of her friend, not inferior to her own. "Jenny, well, let's do your hair, makeup, dress you not so boring," she persuaded her friend. "I swear, you'll outshine everyone." "Even you?" Jenny smiled softly. "Well, I'm not likely," laughed Selena, "but I assure you, you'll be no less spectacular." "Thank you, Selena. But I'm fine with everything about me," she said to her friend. Selena laughed merrily and waved her hand. Such conversations always ended the same way, but she didn't give up hope that her best friend would someday change her boring dress for a more feminine and revealing one. She would let her gorgeous blonde hair down and emphasize her huge green eyes and sensual lips with makeup. After graduating from high school, Jenny easily entered the university, but Selena, despite all the efforts and help of her friend, failed the entrance exams. But the girl was not discouraged, knew that her father will not let them separate from her favorite friend, who, in addition, restrained her impulses to binge life. So it turned out parents determined the daughter on the paid department. In the institute, Selena immediately became the soul of any company and a welcome guest at any party. Jenny, on the contrary, more and more immersed in her studies, distancing herself from student life. Now even to parties, Selena invited her only because she had to invite her, realizing that her friend would not go anyway. However, at Jenny's request, she could refuse any event and be with her friend alone, go to the movies or cafes. Jenny was grateful for this Selena and tried not to abuse her friendship, realizing that her friend was absolutely polar to her. But sometimes Jenny also went out to noisy parties, giving in to her friend's requests. She even bought, with Selena's help, appropriate outfits for such occasions. To her surprise, young people paid attention to her, but after a couple of phrases with them, Jenny got bored and became indifferent to them, which of course repulsed guys. The girl did not understand how you could be interested in life-only clubs, cars, and easy money. Just before her birthday, Selena once again fell in love. "You just can't imagine how cool he is." Rolling her eyes, she told her friend. "Handsome, athletic, smart, caring, gentle, with a sense of humor." "Caring? This is something new," smiled, listening to the enthusiastic flow of her friend Jenny. "Usually, you limited yourself to handsome, athletic, and sometimes funny." "He's amazing," Selena continued with a gasp, covering her eyes. "And in bed?" "Oh, spare me the details." Jenny covered her friend's mouth with her palm. "You just don't understand." Selena urged Jenny fervently, taking her palm away and opening her eyes wide. "With a man like that, you don't realize how you end up in his bed." "Selena, I really hope that someday I will experience the same sensations as you. But for now, Don't make me blush with the details. Selena smiled and hugged her best friend tightly. I'll introduce you to him at the birthday party. Maybe you'll change your mind about men. But I'm warning you, Buck is mine. I'm not going to take your treasure. Laughed Jenny. Jenny, meet my Buck. Selena grabbed Jenny's hand from the doorway and dragged her to meet him. Jenny, a little embarrassed by the guests present, among whom she didn't even know half, followed her friend. It's a pleasure, Buck. The young man looked at Jenny, smiling softly. That look made the girl's body feel warm and faint. She wanted to stand there and stare at him forever. At that time, someone pushed her and Jenny woke up. Jenny. Jenny, she whispered and reached out her hand, regretting it a moment later. His touch literally gave her an electric shock. Selena has told me so much about you that I couldn't wait to meet you. He looked at the girl holding his hand with such tenderness that Jenny realized that she should leave the party right now, because that look, directed at her friend, hurt so much. All right, greetings exchange. Let's go. Selena picked up her friend with her other hand and led them to a large table in the center of the room, laden with various drinks and snacks. A birthday party couldn't go by without the birthday girl. Their approach was met with loud, enthusiastic shouts. From all sides, hands were reaching out to Selena to hug her, kiss her, clink glasses, and just touch her. The girl liked to be the center of attention, and she did not hide it. Drink? Came a voice above her ear that Jenny would now recognize out of 1,000. Do you mind if we go straight to you? No, trying to appear nonchalant, Jenny took the glass held out to her and drank it in a gulp, feeling her throat burn. What is this? Champagne, Buck replied perplexed and took the glass from her hand, sniffed it, then shook the remaining drops onto his tongue. His movement made Jenny's cheeks flush and dizzy. Strange, ordinary champagne, without noticing her condition, said the amazed young man. Buck, you what? You gave Jenny alcohol. Selena, who had freed herself from the congratulators, jumped up to them. Just champagne. The boy stared questioningly at his girlfriend. I told you Jenny never drank anything stronger than orange juice. Selena frowned, but it was obvious she was doing it for looks. Oh, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot about that. Buck looked guiltily at Jenny. Are you okay? I think so, a confused Jenny mumbled. Snack now. Selena ordered her and shoved a canapé into her hands. Buck. She turned to the young man still standing there with a guilty look on his face. Get some juice, or better yet, water. Buck headed for the table. Well, no sooner had you gotten here than I missed you. Selena looked at her friend worriedly. It's okay, Selena, really, Jenny tried to reassure her. I'm not much of a drinker. It'll wear off. Buck gave Jenny a glass of water and a plate of sandwiches. Thank you. The girl made sure her hand didn't accidentally touch his. Their mutual friends ran up to them and pulled them to dance. I'd rather sit for a while, Jenny asked Selena. Okay, she agreed. If you need anything, tell me right away. Selena and Buck left to dance, and Jenny found an empty seat by the wall and with water and sandwiches went to it. Why hadn't she called in sick? She would have congratulated Selena tomorrow. She was already considered a white sheep in the student circle, and then there's this embarrassment with alcohol. What would Buck think of her? Well, who cares? Her friend doesn't like to stay with the same guy for long. Maybe soon there'll be another guy to take Buck's place, and he won't even think about her, Jenny. Your friend is. She's so weird. What do you mean? Selena squinted, slowing down their slow dance. It's like she's from another world, or a century. So, unaccustomed. And very beautiful. I would say. Airy. Buck looked tenderly at Selena. I'd agree about unfit, and beautiful too. But from another world or century, Jenny is a very intelligent and pragmatic girl. It's just that no one has been willing to get to know her better until now. Although, maybe it's for the best. She'll wait for the one and only. There's a lot of hustlers out there who don't want anything but easy money. I'm not talking about you, Buck. You're different. Thank you. The young man kissed Selena tenderly. The girl clung to him. He really wasn't like that. Buck was the first man she'd ever been attracted to. With his gallantry, care, tenderness, and responsibility, he made her feel like she was behind a wall of stone. The champagne, the loud music, and the shock of meeting Buck, and most likely the latter, had given Jenny a headache. She sat in a chair against the wall for most of the evening, occasionally checked on by Selena and Buck, who brought her water The party was in full swing when Jenny realized she couldn't stay here any longer. She sought out her friend and informed her of her intention to leave. "Are you all right?" Selena asked worriedly. "I'm fine. Just a headache." Jenny tried to keep her smile genuine. "You know how I feel about parties, right? I'm going to go home, take a pill and go to bed. Thank you for a wonderful evening." Selena and Buck walked her to the cab. "Please call me when you get there," Selena asked. "I'll be worried." I will. Jenny kissed her friend on the cheek and extended her hand to Buck. "It was nice to meet you." Likewise, his smile made Jenny dizzy and her legs shake again. At home, she popped a pill, called Selena, letting her know she was fine, changed, showered, and got into bed. It was time to take a good hard look at and evaluate everything that had happened to her today. But as soon as she thought of Buck, all her pragmatic thinking shut down and she burst into tears, tucked into her pillow. Buck was not a student at the university where her friends studied. He was a graduate of a technical university and was already working at one of the city's enterprises. A promising engineer, in good standing with the management, was an enviable groom in the circle of his peers. However, when at one of the parties of his colleague appeared Selena, Buck almost immediately fell in love with her. Cheerful, sociable, even one could say reckless beauty immediately attracted the attention of all the male half of the party. Not paying attention to her companion, with whom she came, she flirted with everyone, causing admiration of men and hatred of women gathered at the party. Buck watched her from a distance, rightly reasoning that he had no chance to resist the crowd of her many admirers. But to his amazement, Selena approached him. "Can I have a little breathing room with the man who's the only one who doesn't undress me with his eyes?" She asked it so simply, without a trace of coquetry, that Buck immediately wanted to do to her exactly what she had just said. They chatted the rest of the party. Selena was skillfully blowing off the other men trying to get the attention of other men. Her date, who she had come to the party with, was standing nearby drinking glass after glass, glancing angrily at Buck. "Your boyfriend doesn't seem to like that you've forgotten about him." Buck nodded toward the suitor. Selena waved her hand as if warding off a fly. "I met him at the movies the other day. I thought he was a decent young man, but he immediately started making ambiguous hints. I made it clear I wasn't going out with a boring guy, so he invited me to this party." When Buck and Selena were about to leave, the boring guy tried to correct the situation and claimed Selena, but the girl only squeamishly wrinkled her nose and advised to pump up your brains before hitting on normal girls. Then, while the fan was digesting what she had heard, she grabbed Buck by the arm and dragged him away from the party. The passion that immediately erupted helped them to be in the same bed on the second date. This further piqued Buck's interest, and he forgot about everything but this girl. She was beautiful, enchanting, unpredictable. He looked forward to meeting her, and after each meeting, he realized more and more that he had found the one he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. Meeting her best friend, Jenny, convinced Buck of the right choice. They were too different, as if from different universes, times, and compositions. However, Selena loved her friend, and it was visible to the naked eye. She treasured and cared for her. She listened to her opinions and was always willing to drop everything for Jenny, even canceling a date with him. Buck didn't take offense to that. Jenny gave them mixed feelings of admiration, interest, and tenderness, like a child. He gladly came to her aid if it was required, exactly male participation, to carry heavy bags, to help with the choice of a new gadget, to discard the obsessive suitor. Although with the latter at Jenny, unlike Selena, there were no problems, as well as suitors. There were almost no. Quiet, modest Jenny gave the impression of easy gain, and her eternal desire to learn attracted lazy students, thinking that for a couple of compliments girl will finish university for them. But Jenny didn't pay attention to them or just blew them off. The most persistent ones had to deal with Selena. Sometimes Selena would latch out at her friend. "Jenny, you're gonna be a blue stocking soon enough. Why don't Buck set you up with a decent guy to diversify your abstruse life? Let's go out. Let's go out and have some fun." But Jenny always said no. Selena wondered, what's wrong with her? She's completely out of her mind with her studies. "So you have a diploma on the nose," smiled Buck, "and she has 2 of them to write. What are you implying?" Selena was jokingly angry. "Well, you haven't even started." "Yeah, that's right, the girl confessed. Term papers, essays, diplomas, and all the rest is not my thing." "All right, let's leave Jeannie alone. You hear me, Jeannie?" but only until you get your diploma, and then you're not getting away from me." Jenny smiled and nodded in agreement. During the exams and the defense of diplomas, Buck almost did not see Selena. The girl, under the guidance of her best friend, still seriously took up her studies. He missed her very much, and when it became quite unbearable, he called and asked for a meeting. Selena agreed, and he rushed to his beloved's house to take her into his arms and kiss her for a while. The girl, too, was glad to see him. Her eyes looked at him with such greed that he wanted to shout, "Leave your studies to your mother. I can provide for you for the rest of your life. You won't have to work." But he realized that Selena would never agree to that. For all her easygoing, fun-loving, and reckless nature, she didn't want to be dependent on anyone. She didn't want to be a dependent. Buck had to wait, and now the long-awaited day had come. Today was the girl's graduation defense, followed by a little party. Buck was already in the morning, rushing around the apartment. He wasn't going to stay long at the party. He had other plans for this evening and night. 2 hours before the appointed time, he ran out of the house and headed for the nearest jewelry store. The decision had been made. He would ask Selena to be his wife. Jenny had just about gotten used to the idea that the man who had touched her heart was dating her friend. She was happy at the thought that he was, after all, with her own person. And every now and then she could see him and nurture a small sliver of hope that one day he would get bored with her best friend and, in love with her, would be forced to seek Jenny's support. That day, the day of her graduation defense, she had asked Selena to help her choose an outfit for the first time. Surprised and excited, her friend rushed to help, forgetting about herself. After trying on a lot of outfits, Selena gave Jenny one of her dresses with the words, "This is the most modest of my holiday outfits, but for you, I'm sure it's just right." The dress was indeed gorgeous. It emphasized Jenny's figure and set off her eyes. The shiny, open shoes emphasized her, as it turned out, infinitely long legs. Selena insisted that Jenny's hair was loose and curled into careless locks, supported by a single dainty barrette with emerald stones. "You look like a nymph, like a queen," said Selena admiringly to her friend. To her surprise, Jenny realized that it wasn't just her friend who was attracting attention, but herself as well. The young men were genuinely courting her and saw her as a girl, not just an object that could be useful to them. Every now and then, she would catch a slightly surprised smiling look from Buck, and that was enough to make her happy. Surprised at her looseness, she accepted compliments from the young men, flirted with them, and even agreed to dance a few times. However, from persistent offers to escort her, flatly refused. In the middle of the party, suddenly the music turned off. The young people murmured unhappily, demanding a continuation. "May I have your attention, please?" Buck's voice came from the stage. "I apologize for interrupting your party, but I ask you to take it with understanding. I'm very excited now, as I want to do this for the first time in my life, and I ask for your support." The hum died down, and there was an intrigued silence in the hall, broken by whispers. "Selena," Buck continued, "please come to me." The surprised girl stepped up onto the restaurant's menu stage. Anticipating that she would not like Buck's words, Jenny sat down on the nearest chair and took the champagne glass in her hand. Meanwhile, Buck pulled a small box from his pocket and got down on one knee in front of Selena. "Selena, you are the most beautiful girl in my life. When I met you, I realized that you were the one I had been waiting for all my life. I've waited and waited, and now I want you to be with me always. Will you marry me?" Someone in the audience gasped in delight. Someone giggled. Jenny drank her glass and took a second one. Selena had tears in her eyes. It was obvious that she couldn't say a word out of emotion. Desperate to utter a word, she nodded and held out her hand with her thumb out. To rapturous shouts and applause, Buck put the ring on her and jumped up to embrace her, followed by a kiss. Jenny drank another glass and reached for a second. She didn't notice two of her classmates approaching the table where she was sitting. "Jenny, are you happy for your friend?" Of course. The girl tried to put on an enthusiastic smile. To the future newlyweds, one of the girls shouted into the hall and raised her glass. She was supported by shouts and clinking of glasses. Jenny also joined in the shouting and then emptied her glass in a volley. The music started up again and everyone rushed to dance. Jenny was pulled into the circle where she, who had never danced in her life, danced as well as a disco girl. She hadn't noticed how much time had passed when Selena and Buck came up to her. "Oh, guys, hi." Jenny smiled broadly. "Congratulations. I'm so happy for you." Jenny, are you drunk? Selena took her friend by the shoulder and looked concernedly into her eyes. I think so, Jenny didn't deny it. Have you lost your mind? Have you forgotten how bad you felt last time? No, but Selena, everyone's having fun, partying, drinking champagne. I'm just gonna walk around with a glass of water. You have to start sometime. But not in such quantities, Selena said sternly. Selena, you're not my mother. I agree. I'm your friend and I don't want you to do anything stupid and get hurt. But since you take my concern in such a way, then by all means, keep it up. I won't say a word to you. Buck, let's go. The girl's grown up and she doesn't need our care anymore. An angry Selena turned on her heels and walked away from Jenny. Buck threw a concerned look at Jenny and rushed after his fiancée. What am I doing? Ran through the girl's mind. What am I trying to prove? Is it Selena, my best friend, who we've been together since we were babies, fault that her boyfriend, her future husband, fell in love with her and not me? Is it Buck's fault that I fell for him at first sight? They've always been so good to me, caring for me, shielding me from trouble, wishing me well. And me? I acted like a pig, and I got drunk. Selena. Wait, shouted Jenny and ran after her friend. Selena heard her yell, stopped and turned around. Selena, I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm saying. You're right, and I'm an ungrateful pig. What are you talking about, Jenny? Selena walked over to her friend and hugged her. You're wonderful. You've just had a little too much to drink and got overexcited. You've been stressed out all year with all those final exams and diplomas. No wonder your nerves are shot. I was the one having all the fun. You were the one studying for both of us. And it's my fault that I left you today, busy with my personal life. So you relax as you did. I'm so sorry. Oh, Selena. Jenny was ready to cry. There were tears glistening in Selena's eyes too. Okay, girls, I think we should get out of here and go somewhere quieter where we can socialize, have a drink, and teach Jenny how to celebrate properly. How about it? Let's go. The friends nodded happily. Jenny reluctantly threw on her coat, picked up her bag and gift box, and walked out of the house. She had stopped liking this holiday 3 years ago. She wanted to lock herself away, crawl under the covers and stay there for at least 3 days, but she had to buy presents, pick out an outfit and go to her best friend and her husband's house to celebrate New Year's Eve. At first, Jenny tried to refuse, citing that New Year's Eve was a family holiday and she didn't want to disturb her friend's quiet family happiness. But Selena was adamant. What are you? You're not family. You and I have been together since we were in diapers. Better than siblings. Our parents have their own companies and interests. You'll be bored with them. So no interfering. You're a member of our family and you have to celebrate the new year with us. Indeed, Jenny supported his wife Buck. Well, you can't celebrate with your coworkers. Maybe they'll bore you, or, on the contrary, will be too intrusive, or you'll get tired. And here you have us. And at any time you can go to rest in the room that we have allocated for you. What about your colleagues? They've booked a beautiful restaurant with a festive program. And if I get bored, I can easily call a cab and go home. A cab? On New Year's Eve? Selena laughed. I assure you, it will be unreal. Anyway, we have and that's it. And for the 3rd year in a row, Jenny endured the agony of attending the New Year's Eve party with her best friend and her husband, with whom Jenny was secretly in love, and to her annoyance, this feeling did not want to leave her. Immediately after the institute, Jenny got a job in an international travel agency, where a year later she became the head of the department. And it was not surprising. Her red diploma was confirmed by her excellent knowledge of languages and cultures of different countries. Colleagues, initially skeptical of her educational credentials, over time began to respect her, and her superiors appreciated. Selena got a job in the firm where Buck worked, translator. But from what she told me, she did little translating. She mostly flirted with male colleagues and seduced her husband. Buck, on the other hand, loved his wife and indulged her in everything. Citing her busy schedule, Jenny tried to see her friends as little as possible. It was too painful to see the man she loved feeling the same way she did, but for another woman. But it hurt even more to see Buck genuinely consider her a friend. But no matter how hard Jenny tried to avoid seeing her friends, 3 times a year she had to be in their company. On New Year's Eve and on the couple's birthdays. Happy New Year, Selena chirped, taking the box of presents from Jenny's hands. Buck was helping her take off her coat. Come on in. You look beautiful. Thank you. You look great too. So we've exchanged compliments. Now come on, I'll introduce you to the guests. Selena dragged her friend into the large living room where several people were already there. You didn't tell me you were having guests, Jenny whispered anxiously to her friend. We decided that we had already spent enough time together, and in order not to bore each other, we decided to diversify our society with other people. And you must be tired of spending the holiday with just me and Buck, Selena whispered back and smiled broadly at the two men they were approaching at the same time. Jenny, let me introduce you to my and Buck's co-workers John and Jacob. Men, please love and welcome my best friend Jenny. A pleasure. Each of the men gallantly kissed Jenny's hand. Selena then introduced her friend to the married couple Steve and Julian. They vacationed in Italy together, she whispered to Jenny and her work friend Diane. Finished with the greetings, Selena looked at Buck. He understood her look and spoke loudly. Well, now that we're all here, why don't we go to the table? The attendees responded in agreement and reached for the lavishly set table standing here in the living room. Jenny's seat was between John and Jacob. Behind Jacob sat Selena, followed by Buck, Julian, Steve, and Diane. Jenny thought for a moment that Diana was not happy with this seating arrangement, but she immediately put it out of her mind and concentrated on her behavior. John was an excellent conversationalist and an attentive gentleman. He tried to pay attention to both Jenny and Diana. Buck was discussing something with the couple, but Selena and Jacob. Jenny didn't notice it right away, but she thought her friend was leaning too close to him. Jacob's gaze didn't match that of her friend and co-worker either. It was as if he were caressing and undressing Selena with that gaze, and she was responding promisingly with her eyes. Jenny shook her head. No way. Her friend is not like that. Yes, she is a windy, reckless flirt, but she loves her husband and is faithful to him. After a moment, Jenny thought she was imagining it and joined in the conversation with John and Diana. She looked angry and desperate. What's wrong with you tonight? Jenny said to herself. You've been seeing things all night. She looked down at her glass. No, it wasn't empty. She had only sipped a small amount the entire time she had been at the table. Her musings were interrupted by Buck's loud voice. All right, ladies and gentlemen. In a couple of minutes, the chimes will strike. Please ask the men here to fill our ladies' glasses. The table became animated. We heard the popping of champagne and the clinking of glasses. With the last chime, everyone clinked glasses, drained their glasses, and began to congratulate each other. Jenny saw Buck and Selena kissing. The spouses, Steve and Julianne, also hugged. Diane received kisses on the cheeks from all the men present. Then it was Jenny's turn. Happy New Year. She was hugged in turn by John, Jacob, and Steve. Happy New Year. Buck touched her lips lightly with his own and then pulled away, startled by what he'd done. Jenny smiled, as if she didn't see anything wrong with it, and turned away from Diana to kiss him quickly on the lips as well. Her cheeks were burning, but only she and Buck knew why. After mutual congratulations and some more time-consuming hors d'oeuvres, the guests began to gradually get up from the table to stretch. Buck went to turn on the music, and Diana suggested that Jeannie go powder her nose. But instead of taking a bath, she pulled her out onto the large loggia. She opened the window and took out a pack of cigarettes and handed them to Jeannie, who shook her head in denial. Shrugging her shoulders, Diana lit a cigarette. How was the holiday? Not used to it, Jenny answered honestly. Why? Usually it's just the three of us. Jenny looked at her companion, who was looking at her with interest. No, don't think so. It's just that Selena and I, though very different, have been friends since we were very young. She and I are practically like twins. Diana shook her head. Well, yes, it's just that I'm busy with work now. Selena's a married woman, and we don't see each other much, only on holidays like this. Diana was about to say something else, but John came into the loggia. Girls, shall I join you? Yes, of course, Jenny answered for both of them, especially since I was already cold, but I didn't want to leave Diana alone. You're just in time. Jenny left the loggia and returned to the living room. Buck was having a passionate discussion with the couple. Selena and Jacob were nowhere to be seen. Jenny decided that her friend had gone to her bedroom for something, so she went there, where she could hear the sounds of breathing and kissing in the semi-darkness of the room. In the embracing lovers, Jenny recognized her friend and Jacob. Selena, are you out of your mind? Jenny sat across from her friend in the cafe and forgot about the melting ice cream as she was overcome with conflicting feelings. I saw everything. What did you see? Selena asked calmly. You and Jacob. How could you? It had been 2 months since that unfortunate New Year's Eve when Jenny had caught her friend cheating on her. Jimmy, don't get me wrong. Buck is a wonderful man. He's a wonderful husband. I really love him and I want to be with him. But in the last year, he's been so boring. We used to go out, have fun. Now he insists on having a normal family. He wants me to give birth to him, to behave like a normal wife, cook borscht, create coziness, give birth to children. What happened to him? I don't understand. I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for children. I'll have a couple of beautiful babies someday, but not now. And he wants them now. But that's why you started a family. I married him so I could be with him, so that I could have him, so that we could always be together. Do you love him? Of course I love him. It's just, now is not the time to be tied down by domesticity. Selena looked at her friend pleadingly. Are you judging me? I think you should just talk to Buck about it, not go behind his back. You think I didn't? That's not what he thinks. He says it's time you stopped living for yourself and started thinking about the future. I don't want to. I'd be bored with that kind of life. But cheating. You have no idea how obsessed Buck is with his normal family life. He's always talking about it, slipping me women's magazines with smiling housewives and kids. And Jacob, Selena smiled dreamily, he makes my life interesting. Selena, I still don't get it. That's just the way I am. Selena shook her head and looked at her friend pleadingly. You know, I can't sit still. I need drive, movement, noisy company, and thrills. For the first time in her life, Jenny felt disgusted. If she had understood her friend before, and even envied her carelessness and detachment a little, now she no longer understood her. She suddenly realized with horror what different people they were, how they had different priorities and different ideas about life. She also felt very bad for Buck. According to Selena, he was every girl's dream, but she didn't appreciate it. Jenny said goodbye to her friend, who still didn't understand why she was in a bad mood. Shrugging her shoulders, she looked around the cafe. At the bar was a solid man looking at her with interest. Selena smiled lightly at him and immediately received a raised glass in greeting from the man. An affair was brewing. Jenny, hi. It's Buck. Did you recognize him? Of course she did. She could recognize his voice out of a million. Jenny pulled herself together and tried to speak casually. Hi, Buck. Of course I recognize you, especially since I have your number on my cell phone. Can we get together and talk? The girl's heart sank. What did you want to talk to her about? Did he find out about Selena's cheating? And if he did, he thinks she, Jenny, knows about it too. He'll forgive Selena. He loves her. But with Jenny, he'll probably break off all relations. He won't tolerate betrayal. What could she do, though? Not drag her friend away from another suitor? What if he thought they were flirting? That Jenny lured Selena into cheating on her husband. Sorry, Buck. I have a lot of work to do. Jenny couldn't look him in the eye. Oh, Jenny, please. This is very important to me. I'll meet you anytime and anywhere you want. It didn't look like Buck wanted to fight with her. We have to take a chance and find out what was wrong with him that he needed her help. All right, come to my office. There's a nice cafe downstairs, so wait for me there and I'll be right down. Thanks, Jenny. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. I'm here. That means he was in the neighborhood. Jenny was nervous again, but there was nothing to do. She put on her jacket and walked out of the office. I ordered you a coffee. If there's anything else you want, just say the word. Buck looked disheveled. No, thanks. What's the matter? Jenny, I don't know how to say this, but Selena. Buck took Jenny's hands in his, making the girl dizzy and struggling to understand everything he was saying to her. But there was no strength to remove her hands. You know, when I met her, she was so bright, so funny, so mesmerizing. She had this irrepressible energy that was like a magnet. I fell in love with her. But now, I thought she'd get over all this and we have a quiet family life and have babies. But you see, Jenny, Selena hasn't changed. She still wants to party till the wee hours of the morning, have fun and be loud. And I've grown out of all that, and I don't know how to convince her that it's time to stop. I mean, we're not getting any younger. Buck, it's too early to talk about getting old, Jenny said softly. Selena's always been like this, and she's not gonna change anytime soon. That's why I wanted to meet you. You two are close friends. She should listen to you. Buck, you're wrong. We're close friends, but we've always respected each other's privacy and stayed out of each other's hobbies. I'm not asking you to change her mind. Just talk to her. See what her plans are for the future. Maybe you can change her mind about married life somehow, just a little bit. All right, Buck. I'll try to talk to her and try to help your marriage, but I can't promise any results. Jenny stood up. She couldn't stand the touch of his hands any longer. Her mind was no longer listening to her. Buck jumped up behind her and grabbed her hands again. Thank you, Jeannie. He gave her a quick peck on the cheek. The girl carefully released her hands. Bye, Buck. After meeting Buck, Jenny wasn't herself. Her work was falling out of her hands, and her mind was racing with conflicting thoughts. How could she convince Selena that her cheating would ruin her life? Or maybe screw her? Selena couldn't be fixed, and for Jenny, this was a chance to get closer to Buck. And when he finds out about his wife's cheating, he'll have her, Jeannie, by his side. And maybe her support will make him look at her differently. Not as a friend, but as a woman. Calm, loving, domestic, ready for married life. What are you talking about? Jenny pulled herself back. You're judging Selena, and you're ready to steal her husband. Well, not steal, but take advantage of the situation. What kind of friend are you? Having decided to meet Selena today, Jenny reached for the phone to call her friend, but the ringing of the landline interrupted her. Jenny, come in. The supervisor was as brief and, as usual, rude. No wonder. Before organizing his travel agency, Michael went through all the hardships of military service, visited several hot spots, and having served as a lieutenant colonel, retired. He could not enjoy doing nothing for long and decided to open his own travel agency, which, thanks to his leadership and connections, quickly grew and became one of the most popular in the country. All the employees of the travel agency, following the example of the head, tried to be punctual and concise. Okay, Jeannie, I think you know that our business in Indonesia is not as good as we would like it to be. Jenny nodded quickly. It's a sought-after destination, and we've been sending tourists there for a long time, but there are still some problems. I think it's because of the remote control, Michael, Jeannie suggested. You see, the chief raised his index finger. That's why I've decided we should open an office there, a branch office. Well, that's a good idea. You're putting me in charge of that. Yes. Good. I'll send a team of specialists. I'll have them find staff, office space, set up communications. No. I'm afraid we can't make a difference with local staff. They need a manager from us. Permanently, not temporarily. Well, I think some of the staff will agree to move to Bali, for example. Jeannie, I met you. The chief looked at the girl affectionately. Me? But why? You are a very good specialist. You have an excellent knowledge of languages. And as a manager, you have proven yourself. And on top of that, you don't have a family. After all, sending a whole family to live in another country is problematic. But you're perfect. But Michael, Jenny didn't feel good about having things decided for her. So what if she's not married? She has parents after all. Friends, acquaintances. Why should she give up everything for the company? Jenny, wait, don't jump to conclusions. Michael raised his hand soothingly. I'll give you a month to think about it. Think about it, weigh everything and agree. In turn, I promise you a significant increase in salary, a small chalet on the ocean at the expense of the company, and your own car. The management of the branch will be entirely at your discretion. The only thing I will expect from you is to eliminate problems and increase profits. Michael smiled paternally. I need to think and consult with my family. I'm not completely alone after all. Of course, Jeannie. You've got a whole month. And I'm not promising anything. I'm not even sure I'll do it. A month, Jenny. What a day. Jenny sat in her office, staring blankly out the window. First Buck with an ambiguous request for me. Then Michael. Why? Should I drop everything and run away to Indonesia? Let them work it out without me. I'll just keep myself busy so I don't have to think. But the thought that she might never see Buck again tore her heart into many pieces and made her want to howl. Okay, I'm going to put Indonesia on hold for a couple days and get on with my current problems, Jenny decided. I have to talk to Selena, if only to convince myself that I can't do anything to help Buck. We'll talk to her about my possible departure. With that conclusion in mind, Jenny picked up the phone and dialed her parents' number. She needed to calm down and hear an independent and appropriate opinion. Having left work early, Michael, hoping for her consent, seemed ready to fulfill her every wish. In a couple of hours, Jenny was already at her parents' house. "Well, why, daughter?" Father sipped his legitimate after-dinner glass and looked good-naturedly at his daughter. "I think it's not a bad rise in career. And it's not even about the material benefits. You have complete freedom of action, and that's worth a lot. You will be your own boss, and you will only report directly to the management, and even then, as I understand it, if you worsen the indicators, and I'm sure you'll only improve them." "Dad, but it's so far away, and for a long time, we won't see each other at all." "We don't see each other much anyway, and we'll be visiting you on vacation, and we'll be able to video chat. I assure you, we'll see each other a lot more often than if we lived in the same city." Jenny sighed. Maybe her father was right. But what about Selena and Buck? The girl stayed the night at her parents' house. Before she went to bed, Jenny's mom came into the room. "Jenny, I know there's something else eating at you." She stroked her daughter's head. "Why don't you share it? I'm sure it's one of the obstacles to you leaving. Perhaps I can help to clear your doubts." The girl looked at her mother and, taking a deep breath, began her story. When Jenny entered the cafe, Selena was already there. A man stood up from the table where her friend was sitting and hurried to the bar. "Are they coming over?" she asked, winking at Jenny. "Ah," Selena waved her hand. "That's Frank, my new acquaintance." Jenny felt uneasy. "You mean a new lover? What about Jacob? What about Buck?" "Jenny, you're becoming a prude. Get yourself a man and don't faint at the sight of my boyfriends." "I'm not fainting. In fact, I'm not surprised that you have several lovers. But don't you think it's unfair to Buck? How do you get into bed with him after them?" "Jenny, he who knows less sleeps better." "Or, what are you trying to say?" Selena squinted her perfectly painted eyes. "You want to tell Buck? Well, go ahead. Go. You think he'll believe you?" "Even if he did, he'd still forgive me. He loves me. I wasn't going to tell your husband anything. It's just that he happens to be my friend, and I'm ashamed to look him in the eye." "Why are you ashamed? You're not his wife. Just because I'm covering for you, I'm betraying him." "Oh, you're so tender." "Jenny, forget it. This is my problem. Let's change the subject. What did you want to talk to me about?" Jenny remained silent, realizing that it was useless to talk to Selena about her family. "Is that what you wanted to talk about?" Selena guessed. "No, but what I wanted to talk about is no longer relevant." "Good. Come on, I'll introduce you to Frank." And without waiting for her friend's answer, Selena waved her hands, urging the man behind the counter to come to their table. "Frank," she cooed, "this is my best friend Jenny. Jenny, this is Frank. Nice to meet you." Frank leaned gallantly into Jenny's hand. Likewise, the girl muttered and hurriedly pulled her hand away. "Frank," not paying attention to the behavior of her friend, continued Selena, "you do not have a friend like you. Because my friend is stuck at work, does not go anywhere, and it became boring as hell. We'll find one," the man said, unashamedly eyeing Jenny with an appraising look. "Good, then why don't you and your friend take us out tonight?" Selena sang out, smiling at Frank. "That's a great idea. Jenny, a favor, tell Buck that you and I decided to have a girls' night out and went to the movies." "I'm sorry, Selena, but I have other plans for tonight," Jenny said angrily. Her friend had decided that she could decide for her who to go with and where to go. And she's making her lie and defend her. "No way." "Hey, what are you doing?" Selena looked at her friend in surprise. "What's gotten into you?" Then she got up from her chair and shook her head to the side. "Come on, let's go have a private chat." Jenny followed her. "What are you doing, friend? Are you trying to meddle in my private life again?" Selena's voice was threatening. "I think you're trying to invade my privacy," Jenny retorted. "I didn't ask you to introduce me to an elderly womanizer and decide for me where to go tonight. You're not going to be of any use to anyone like that anytime soon." Jenny suddenly didn't care at all. She suddenly realized that she and Selena had been different people for a long time and that they were not meant to be together. "I'm going, Selena," Jenny said tiredly and headed for the exit. "Get out of here. She's playing the innocent sheep. I'll live without you somehow." "Hi." After such a messy fight with Selena, Jenny wasn't surprised, but Buck showing up at her apartment was a surprise. "Hi. Come on in." Jenny let the man into the hallway. "Something wrong?" "A lot of things." Buck threw off his shoes and jacket and went into the kitchen. Jenny put the kettle on and looked at the man questioningly. I just found out today that you and Selena had a fight. Was it because I asked you to? No, in the last 2 weeks, Jenny had already come to terms with the fact that she no longer had any friends. You know, she quit her job because she was bored in the office. She took a job at a nightclub as a receptionist. Now she disappears there all night. I'm glad she found a job she likes, Jeannie said quietly. Why is Buck here? We hardly ever see each other. She's been asking me to come, but I haven't really liked all those noisy parties lately. Still, it's hard to stay home alone. So, I thought I'd come see you. Do you mind? No, if I'm disturbing you, I'll leave. No, you're not disturbing me, Jenny said quietly. They walked through the park. Jenny was still hesitant to tell Buck about the job offer. She was afraid of his reaction and wanted his opinion. Today, Michael reminded her that she had a week to think about it, and exactly 1 week had passed since the night Buck had shown up on her doorstep. That night they had talked a lot, and the man had left well past midnight. She hadn't dared to tell him why she and Selena had quarreled, though Buck had urged her to do so. The next day Buck called her and asked her to have dinner with him. I'm not such a lover of company and entertainment, he laughed sadly into the phone, but I don't want to spend the evening alone. Jenny agreed. They had a wonderful time, having dinner in a quiet, cozy restaurant, and then walked through the park. Buck talked about his work, about funny things that had happened to him and his co-workers. Jenny listened and smiled. She was happy just to be near him, that she could hear his voice and sometimes touch his hand. They began to meet every day. They went to the movies, to cafes, walked in the park, and even visited the theater once. From time to time, Buck took her hand, and those were the happiest moments. She realized she was doing the wrong thing. That Buck was a married man and the husband of her, albeit former, friend. But she couldn't help herself. Yesterday, he walked her to her apartment and took her hands in his. They stood there in silence for a few seconds, looking into each other's eyes. Then Buck suddenly put his arms around her quickly and pressed his lips to hers. From surprise, Jenny first responded to his kiss, then pushed him away and ran into the apartment, locked herself in, and leaned back against the door. She could feel him still standing outside the door and tried not to breathe. It seemed like an eternity before footsteps were heard outside the door. Today Buck called her as if nothing had happened and asked her to meet him. At first she wanted to refuse, but then she changed her mind. What would it do? Doubt and reticence? No, better to dot all the I's and T's. They walked in silence down the alley. Each of them was thinking how to start a conversation. They started together. Yeah. Jenny didn't get a chance to say anything. I know she's cheating on me. His words hit her like a thunderclap. How? The girl whispered. So I was right. You knew everything. Buck's voice was not a drop of anger and irritation. Don't think. I'm not angry. You were best friends, and even when you quarreled, you kept quiet. I see. How long have you known? Almost as soon as it happened the first time. Of course she didn't tell me anything, but Selena couldn't hide her behavior, flirting without embarrassing me. At first I couldn't believe such a blatant betrayal, but her frequent walks with you convinced me I was right. Were you following us? No, I just know you so well. You can't go to that many parties. She wasn't hiding from anyone. And people, unlike cheating spouses, see and hear everything. When Selena dumped Jacob, he came straight to me and insinuated that she was unfaithful. Buck, I think your spouse is cheating on you, he said. Did she leave you? I asked him. You should have seen the look in his eyes. By then, I was already aware of Selena's affairs. But why did you? Why? Jenny stopped and turned to the man. Asked you to talk to her? About the family? Yes. I'm sorry. Even though I knew you well, I didn't know you well enough. I thought you were either going to defend her and convince me that it was my fault she didn't want to settle down, or you were going to turn her in like a best friend to impress me and open my eyes. You've got an opinion about best friends, Jenny exclaimed. Sorry, other people's advice and opinions misled me. But Jenny was so offended by his words that she turned away and walked forward down the alley. Jenny, wait. Buck caught up with her and took her by the arm, forcing her to stop. I'm so sorry. I was a fool to think of you that way. It's just, a while ago I realized I didn't want a wife like Selena. I've been watching you and wishing I'd seen you in time. Although that night when you defended your diplomas, there was a doubt in me when I saw you, but the decision was already made at that point. and I decided not to go with my fleeting premonitions. Then we didn't see each other much, and I started to think I'd done the right thing until I found out about the affair. Buck. Wait, let me finish. When I came to you and asked you to talk to Selena about our marriage, I had another goal in mind, to find out how you felt about me. And if you'd given Selena away, I would have filed for divorce and courted you without a doubt. And what did you find out? Jenny asked with an irritated grin. That you were completely indifferent to me, and you've decided to stay with Selena. No, we're getting a divorce at the moment. What do you mean? The news came out of the blue. I can't live with a woman who betrayed me, especially a woman I've fallen out of love with. What about Selena? Jenny was literally burning with curiosity. First, she didn't believe me when I told her I filed for divorce. Then she accused you of ratting her out. Then she said she wouldn't give me a divorce. Now she seems to have calmed down. Why didn't you say anything to me? To be honest, I wanted to tell you, but after the divorce. But I couldn't bear it. I wanted to see you so badly. You make me feel like I'm doing the right thing. Buck took a step toward Jeannie. What's that supposed to mean? She recoiled. Let me just see you. I'll wait as long as you'll let me, and I'll accept whatever you decide. Not believing what she was hearing, Jenny stood staring at Buck with rounded eyes. She berated herself for her gullibility and pliability, but she couldn't help it. For too long she had been around him and not been able to even touch him. Too long had she watched someone else's happiness. It was all too much. The day Buck told her he was getting a divorce and how he felt about her, she just ran away. She couldn't believe this was happening to her. That the man she'd secretly loved for so many years was reciprocating. She felt like she was dreaming. So when she got to the house, she locked herself in and tried to wake up. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang. Jenny sat there without moving. The bell rang again. On stiff legs, the girl went to the door and looked through the peephole. Buck. Why had he come? Why was he torturing her? But her hands were already unlocking the locks. As soon as the door opened, Jenny found herself in the man's arms. His passionate, demanding kisses robbed her of the strength to resist or think at all. They woke up when it was deep night outside the window. Jenny rushed to the bathroom, where she stood under the shower for a long time, trying to come to her senses and decide what to do next. Jenny, is everything all right in there? Buck's excited voice sounded outside the door. Open up, please. I'm worried. Jenny wrapped herself in towels and opened the door, carefully avoiding looking the man in the eye. But he embraced her and led her into the room, where a small table had already been set up, with a bottle of champagne at the head of it. At the surprised look of the girl, he explained, "Delivery from restaurants is available 24 hours a day." Then, seating Jenny on the couch, he poured them each a glass. "To you." He raised his glass. Jenny nodded and drank it down. A warmth spread through her body and the tension began to subside. "Jenny, I'm sorry." "For what?" "If I had known you had never been with anyone before me, I would have been more careful." "Good thing you didn't." Jenny grinned and held out her glass to him. Their gazes met, his happy and excitedly surprised and hers sad and thoughtful. "Jenny, I feel like something's wrong." "What's wrong, anyway?" "Did I hurt you? Did I hurt you?" "No, you didn't hurt me. I hurt myself." "But how?" "I let my feelings get in the way. I couldn't control myself and I let it all happen. You're still a married man. I understand you and Selena are going through a rough patch and you need an outlet. I don't blame you. I'm the stupid fool who couldn't stop you. And myself." "What are you talking about?" "I'm divorcing Selena because she betrayed me and because I don't love her. I want to be with you. I'm the fool because I realized too late that I need you. I'll be free in a week and we'll get married." Or, do you regret it?" "I've got it all wrong. You're with me out of pity." "No, Buck. I've loved you for a long time, but..." "Then there's no buts about it. He's got her in his arms. We're gonna get married and be together. I love you, and I'm not gonna let some cockroach in your pretty little head get in the way of that." The last week of the month she had been given to think about it was coming to an end. Jenny was preparing a speech for Michael. She had to convince him to send someone else to Indonesia so that it would not affect her career. She was sure that she would be able to come to an agreement with the chief, that she would be more useful with him. The sudden happiness and Buck's love gave her strength. Of course, the thought of leaving with her lover crept into her mind, but she wasn't sure he'd agree. Here he had a job he loved, a good position, and what was waiting for him in Indonesia. I doubt his engineering skills would be of much use there, and he couldn't, she was sure of it, be unemployed for long. And after a while he'd blame her for leaving him without his favorite job. No, she'd rather be fired. She could always get a part-time job translating. At least she could get a job at Buck's firm. He said their translators were worth their weight in gold. Or maybe she could quit the travel agency and move closer to her lover. Then they'd practically never be apart. This thought inspired Jenny, and she was no longer dreading the upcoming conversation with the chief. On day X, Jenny stood under the shower and sang. Buck was making breakfast in the kitchen. The feeling of boundless happiness suddenly made her want to be a little late for work. Without turning off the shower to surprise Buck, she threw on a towel and tiptoed out of the bathroom and into the kitchen. A man was talking angrily on the phone with someone. Jenny stopped so as not to distract him. Let him finish his conversation, and then she would help him improve his mood. So what, that you're pregnant? Jenny turned cold. We're getting a divorce, and I don't care about your situation. Jenny quietly turned around and ran to the bathroom. Closing the doors behind her, she leaned against them and cried silently. Not only was she infatuated with a married man, but he was about to be a father, and from what she had heard, not a very good one. He doesn't care about his child, and the mother of his child. No, Jenny believed Buck loved her. A man can't be like that if he doesn't love, but that love leaves two people unhappy, one of whom is an innocent baby. No way, she's not gonna let that baby grow up without a father. It's their own fault for letting their feelings get out too quickly. It was time to hide them deep inside again and never show them again. Calmly, Jenny walked out of the bathroom. Buck was thoughtful, but he put her breakfast down and poured her coffee. Jenny, I have to go somewhere after work. Can you get home alone? Yes, of course. Jenny tried to look nonchalant. Did something happen? Just a little misunderstanding. Wow, turns out the baby's a little misunderstanding. Jenny suddenly felt uncomfortable. Trying to hide her squeamishness at such words, she stood up from the table. I'll drive myself to work too, okay? All right. She gave Buck a quick kiss and ran out into the hallway. Hurry, hurry, he's gonna find out about this. Michael, may I? Come on in, Jeannie. The chief smiled. Are you here to tell me your decision? Yes, I'm taking off today. Jeannie stretched out in the wicker chair. A warm, soothing breeze was blowing in from the ocean, as if whispering, you did the right thing. It had been a little over a year since her escape. In that time, she had almost calmed down, and the memories of Buck were no longer so painful in her heart. She was sure she had done the right thing. Too quickly, she had given in to her feelings without letting Buck's family be dealt with. She didn't regret what had happened. She had been happy, albeit briefly, but those memories would warm her for the rest of her life. She had learned what it was to love and be loved. Too hasty. Well, what's done is done. She knew she had done the right thing by moving away from her love and giving Buck the opportunity to be a good father. The birth of a child was to reunite the family of her former friend Selena and the man she loved. Perhaps, after becoming a mother, Selena would settle down and become the good and loving wife that Buck had dreamed of. Michael was not deceived. She was given a rent-free home of her own choosing, a small but cozy chalet overlooking the ocean, and a small car for trips around the island. The first months of hard work left no room for unhappy thoughts. Jenny hardly slept at all while working on the opening of the branch. She got to know the representatives of their travel agency personally, accompanying them in their work and observing them. She traveled to all the hotels with which they had contracts, talked to tourists, during which she found out that some of the representatives of the travel agency were unscrupulous in their duties and overcharged them, contrary to the terms and conditions. She found suitable premises and rented them. I thoroughly reviewed the personnel files and personally talked to each of them. A month later, the staff of the branch was renewed, trained, and began to fulfill their duties. At first, there were some shortcomings here and there that had not been noticed before. Jenny fixed them, corrected them, and moved on. After 8 months, the branch brought in the expected profit for the first time. The system was working like a well-oiled machine, bringing her satisfaction and pride, and her bosses increasing profits. She could exhale, but not relax. Jenny knew that if she let her guard down, her subordinates would feel it, and she would have to start all over again. Still, she felt better. That's when her memories came back to her. and if during the day she was so absorbed in her work that she thought of nothing but her work, at night her memory brought her back to the days when she had been so happy. In order not to return to the state of despair in which she had been when she came to the island, Jenny made a vow to herself that she would think of Buck only 1 hour before going to bed, and only of the good things between them. "Mistress Jenny, there's someone here to see you." Kahaya, the au pair, entered the living room. Kahaya was an Indian woman, born into a poor, if not impoverished family. She and her husband had moved to Indonesia in search of a better life. But even here, things didn't work out. The couple could barely make ends meet with casual labor. Kahaya went to offices, offering her services as a cleaner and laundress. Her husband, Surya, was working on the plantations for a pittance from morning till night. The day Kahaya entered Jenny's newly opened office was the happiest day of her life. The young foreigner not only gave her a job in the office, but after watching the woman carefully and gladly fulfill all her wishes, she offered her a permanent job in her home. After learning that the assistant's husband was working his ass off on the plantations, Jenny invited him to her house and offered him a job as a driver on a tourist bus. The previous driver had been leaking fuel, so Jenny fired him. Surya gladly accepted. They settled near the shawl of their new mistress and began each morning by praying for her health. Jenny was pleased with her new employees. The only thing they could not fulfill was calling her by her first and middle names. After much study and agony, they settled on Mrs. Jenny. Soon all the subordinates began to call Jenny by that name. After a little thought, she gave in. Gunter must have decided to work on his day off, thought Jenny, and got up from her chair to greet her deputy. She liked Gunter at once for his efficiency, diligence, education, and business acumen. He helped her understand the mentality of the natives, translated words from the dialect she did not understand, pointed out flaws she did not notice, and was devoted to her with all his heart. And it was not surprising. A boy from a poor family, no matter how miraculously he managed to get an education, would never occupy such a position with his richer countrymen. By all means, Gunter tried to convince his boss that she had not entrusted him with such a position for nothing. She could wake him up at any time of the day or night, and he was happy to go to the other side of the island to fulfill her errands. If one of the workers did not come to work, he was ready to replace him, while finding out the reason for the absence. Gunter dealt with insolent workers in such a way that they became quieter than water, lower than grass. Under his watchful eye, the accounting of the branch was so transparent that even Jenny, who was not very close to it, could understand all the calculations and amounts. Jenny smiled broadly and looked at the person who had entered. "You." The smile slid off her pale face. Kahaya, seeing the condition of her mistress, asked excitedly, "Mrs. Jenny, should I call the police? I'll call my husband right now." "Don't do that, Kahaya," Jenny squeezed out. "This is my friend. It's just that he came uninvited. Get us some coffee." Kahaya, glancing warily at the guest, left. Jenny stared silently at the man standing across from her, unable to utter another word. It was as if these months had never happened. It was as if that hopeless pain had never gone away. She went back to the day she'd heard him on the phone. Her heart was torn apart with despair again. "Well, hello, Jenny." Buck broke the long silence. "Hello, Buck. We better part ways." He reread the note again and could not understand a word of it. Break up with whom? Why? Why would it be better? The meeting with Selena had driven him white hot. He rushed to Jenny's room to hug her and calm down. He couldn't wait to forget this conversation like a bad dream and be glad that he was finally rid of the traitor. Selena was waiting for him at her club. It had been 2 months since they'd seen each other, but she changed a lot. If before she was a beautiful coquette, now she had turned into a vulgarly dressed woman with provocatively bright makeup and a lustful look. "Hi, Buck." She sang out and tried to kiss him, but Buck pulled away. Selena wasn't embarrassed, and she patted the seat next to her and asked, "Would you like a drink?" "No, thanks. What did you want?" "Did I want?" "No, honey, you wanted it." Buck stared at her in silence, and Selena continued, "You wanted a real family. You're gonna get one now." "Not with you." "With who? I'm still your wife. We'll be divorced next week." "I don't think so. A judge won't deprive a pregnant woman of her husband." Selena smiled charmingly and flapped her heavily painted eyelashes. "I didn't get you pregnant, and I can safely prove it by sending you for tests." "Come on, Buck. Who cares who got me pregnant? The important thing is that we have a complete real family. After all, the father is not the one who gave birth, but the one who raised it. I'm sure you'll be a wonderful father." Buck was starting to boil. Selena, apparently, was firmly convinced that he would gladly accept her child and raise it. "You've got some nerve." "Selena, I'm divorcing you. I don't want your child. Let him be raised by his father." "Go to him. His father is a married man, and he doesn't need children on the side. But he does need mistresses. Come on, Buck." "That's it, Selena. That's enough. I'm not going to live with a cunt and raise her bastard children. If you don't give me a divorce, I'll have to demand a DNA test, and then all your friends and family will know what a bitch you are. Although, I wouldn't be surprised if they already know. You know, hide your affairs." No one was home. Turning on the light in the hallway, Buck noticed a note on the dresser. "We better break up." Without undressing, he went into the room, sat down on the couch, and stared at the piece of paper. Why? What had happened? Had Jenny suddenly realized she didn't love him? Had it all been temporary and she cooled off so quickly? He dialed her number over and over again, but the caller was unavailable. Buck jumped up and stormed out of the apartment. An hour later, he was ringing the doorbell at Jenny's parents' house. I wondered myself why everything was in such a hurry. Jenny's mom was hustling around Buck, pouring him tea, slicing cake. She called from work and said she was leaving in a couple hours, that she'd explain everything later. Didn't you know she'd been offered a job in Indonesia? No, she didn't tell me anything. Do you know where exactly she's going? How could I? Even her superiors don't know. She said she was given the right to choose any location and she'll decide where to stay. Don't worry, I'll let you know as soon as I find out. But why didn't she tell me? The woman just shrugged her shoulders. The next day, Buck was in the office where Jeannie worked. Alas, young man, we haven't heard from her yet. Michael waved his hands. You'll come back in a month. We'll know her exact location then. What month? Buck paced around his office and didn't know what to do. He called Jeannie's mother. She still didn't know anything. Calm down, Buck. It's not gonna do any good to go on rushing around like this. Just be patient. I'll call you as soon as I know something. The man hung up the phone and thought, what's the real reason he's floundering? If she didn't want to be with him, why bother her? He jumped up again and ran around the office. But why run off like that without saying a word, without talking, without explaining himself? He would have understood. No, he wouldn't have understood. He wouldn't have left her until she came back to him. Maybe that's why she left without saying anything. Was she afraid of his reaction? Buck had calmed down by evening. First, he would deal with Selena, then he would look for Jenny. To Buck's amazement and indignation, Selena said in court that she was expecting a child and didn't want to leave it fatherless. When Buck demanded a DNA test, she said it would be dangerous for the baby and she would not allow it. The court sided with Selena and postponed the divorce hearing until the birth of the child. In the evening of the same day, Selena arrived at Buck's home, saying that she had quit her job and would be preparing for the upcoming birth, and now he was obliged to support her. Barely restraining himself from dragging her out the door by the scruff of her neck, Buck gritted his teeth. All right, live. I'll provide you with food and necessary medicines, if the doctor prescribes them, but you won't get a dime of money from me. You'll be out of here like a cork. Selena stretched her lips in a smile. She knew how to make a man fall in love and pay, but the smile began to slip from her face when she saw Buck packing. Where are you going? I'm staying with friends. You didn't think I'd want to share an apartment with you, did you? You're just afraid you can't stand me. Selena shrieked. Buck just shook his head and walked out the door. Selena decided she could do just fine without Buck. After all, she's a beautiful woman with an instant attraction for men. Hello, Kitty. How about we get together tonight? Sorry, I'm busy. Pookie, your baby misses you. I hear you're pregnant. I'm sorry, but I have no desire to date women who are pregnant. What's wrong with that? Short beeps. We want to see our daddy. Selena, I told you I don't want this baby. I have a wife to procreate with. In fact, don't call me again. Baby, who are you? Are you crazy? I'm Selena. I met you last weekend at the club. Oh, is she the one who's pregnant and about to hang someone else's baby on her husband? Sorry, babe. It's nothing personal, but I prefer younger girls. And you're like this. Drunken mistake. Bye. Selena hung up the phone and stared at it dumbfounded. What does all this mean? Is she asleep? She had just been sent away by all her lovers. How could this even happen? She picked up the phone again to make the call. Oh, Selena, hi. We're having such a party. Come on over. Oh, thank God. At least she's still welcome somewhere. Selena hurriedly started packing. Yeah, who knew a fun, agile girl could grow up to be such a badass? Betty carefully refilled Buck's tea. Have you heard from Jeannie? Buck didn't care about his wife. He was sitting at Vasilisi's parents' house. After he left home, Buck first headed for the hotel, not wanting to embarrass his friends with his presence. At the door of the inn, he suddenly met Betty, Jenny's mom. What are you doing here, Buck? The woman was surprised. What are you doing here? Buck answered rudely with a question. I was visiting a friend and decided to take a walk, ignoring the man's tone of voice to Betty. I'm moving. To a hotel? The woman looked at the young man in surprise. Blurred eyes, gaunt, tired look. Come on, let's go and have some coffee. She took him under her arm and dragged him to the nearest cafe. Buck didn't resist. Ordering a cup of coffee, Betty ordered, Tell me. Whether it was the tension of the last few days or the despair of being separated from Guinea, but Buck laid it all out. About his broken family life, about Selena's cheating, about his love for Jenny, about his too long thinking, which led to his beloved's escape and pregnancy by another wife who wouldn't give him a divorce. Betty listened to him almost without interrupting, only occasionally asking clarifying questions about his confusing story. Buck, forget the hotel. Go to Jeannie's. Her apartment's empty anyway. Buck refused at first, but then decided it would be better. From that day on, he went to visit Jeannie's parents, hoping that the girl would someday reveal her whereabouts. She called the other day, but I couldn't find out where she was, and she wouldn't mention you. Buck sighed heavily. If it hadn't been for this situation with Selena's pregnancy, he wouldn't have hesitated to go looking for Jeannie. He would have traveled all over Indonesia to find her. That wouldn't be necessary. It's just a matter of finding out the location of the branch and the address of the manager. I think she somehow found out about Selena's pregnancy and decided to give your family a chance, Betty suggested. What chance? I didn't get Selena pregnant. She and I didn't sleep together for months before I started dating Jenny. I'd sooner believe Jeannie was pregnant. Oh, don't worry about it. It'll work out. I'd assure you, Jeannie loved you and will understand. But you have to deal with your own problems first. You don't start a new relationship before you finish the old one. Once you've cleared the eyes with Selena, then go to Jeannie for a new life. I'm afraid Selena will do anything to keep me as her husband. Well, you better figure out a way to make sure that doesn't happen. Who's the big fat one? Selena struggled to get her eyes open and looked at the man who had spoken. A huge, chubby man of indeterminate age with a huge red nose on a puffy face was looming over her. He smelled so foul that the woman immediately felt nauseous. Pushing the man away, Selena rushed in search of the bathroom. She found it with difficulty and stood over the sink for a long time. When the seizure passed, she looked in the mirror. Disheveled hair, smudged mascara, no clothes. She was what? With this. Selena leaned against the sink again. Wrapping herself in a towel, the woman stepped out of the bathroom and looked around. Quite a decent apartment, just not cleaned. The man was wearing only shorts. A huge hairy potbelly protruded no worse than Selena's own. Here, drink up. The man handed her a glass with some liquid in it. It'll make you feel better. Selena grimaced and looked for water. How did she end up here? As if answering her silent question, the man said good-naturedly, We met you at the club. Me and Richard. We had a joke. Moms-to-be also want to relax. Then we went to my place here. We had another drink and your friend went off with Richard and you stayed with me. You know, I love pregnant women. Can you take me home? Selena's voice was giving me a headache. Come on, come on. What are you doing there? You said yourself that your husband doesn't care about you. The fat man smiled good-naturedly. Stay. I'll take care of you. I can see how bad you feel. I like pregnant women. Baby doll, I understand, but I don't want someone else's baby, and I don't want you to have one with the way you live when you're pregnant. The next time Selena woke up, she was already in the hospital room. Her head ached again, her mouth tasted of metal, and her lower abdomen felt completely empty. Finally, a familiar voice sounded somewhere nearby. She turned her head with difficulty and saw Edward. "Where am I?" she whispered with dry lips. "At the hospital. I searched the whole park before I found you. You were in a terrible state. You were beaten up, bleeding badly. What's up? Did you have a good time?" Selena turned away and cried. She spent 2 months in the hospital. After what happened, the baby didn't survive. The chance of getting pregnant again was slim. Edward visited her in the hospital faithfully and tried to cheer her up. After she was discharged, he took her back to his house. A couple months later, the court held a trial where Selena signed the divorce papers without a word. Now she stayed at home, and even Edward did the grocery shopping. Every night, she waited anxiously for him to come home from work, afraid that instead of going home, he would go to a club where he would pick up a younger and more promising girl to have children with. This night, Edward was late. Selena dialed his cell phone again and again, but it was unavailable. She began to shake, tears rolling from her eyes, and suicidal thoughts ran through her head. She didn't hear the key turn as she sobbed. A surprised and frightened Edward rushed over to her. "Selena, what's wrong?" "You're not here. Your phone's not answering." "I thought what happened?" She could hardly speak from sobbing. "What's going to happen to me? The phone's dead, and here I am." Edward began frantically rifling through his pockets. Finally, he found what he was looking for. "I came for this." There was a ring in the palm of his large hand. Selena stared at the ring. "What are you doing? Are you, proposing to me?" "Yes," Edward smiled embarrassedly. "Why do we have to live like this? You're a free woman now. But I probably won't be able to give birth to you, will I?" "Yes, you can. We'll cure you. The long, painful wait has come to an end. He's free. All he has to do is quit his job, buy the tickets, and what if she rejects you? What if she's been married a long time?" Buck's friend Austin tried to talk him out of it. "Why don't you take a vacation first? Go out, do some research, make some inquiries. What if she's already married to a native and raising a couple of mulatto babies?" According to her mom, Jenny didn't do anything like that. What if she was careful to hide it from her mom? Why? What's the point of hiding her grandchildren from her grandmother, even if they are from a man of color? Her mother is a wonderful woman who has no color prejudice. Still, I wouldn't be in such a hurry to get fired if I were you. It's no big deal. If Jeannie doesn't want to see me, or if she's already married, I'll go back and find another job. I'm not bad at it after all. Suit yourself. Buck stood in front of a small 2-story building, the first floor of which was a European-type cafe. The second floor was a branch of Jeannie's travel agency. Despite it being a day off, the cafe had few customers. He entered, ordered a cup of coffee, and addressed the bartender, hoping that he knew English. Buck did not speak any other languages. "Excuse me, but why so few guests?" "It's the rainy season." Luckily, the bartender knew English. The rainy season is about to start. Tourists don't like it. Buck nodded his head and sipped his coffee. He didn't know how to get the conversation to the director of the travel agency above the cafe, but the director suddenly helped him. "Are you by any chance an American?" the bartender asked. "Yes, how did you know?" Buck was surprised. "Oh, I'm a good judge of foreigners, especially when they start talking," smiled the bartender. "And thanks to my new neighbor," the bartender pointed to the ceiling, "I can recognize Americans right away. You seem to be so intelligent, scientists, but there is something primitive in you. It's barely perceptible, but it's there." "Interesting." Buck shook his head. "Then I am very lucky that your neighbor is American. I'm not very good with languages, and I'd like to see the country and the places I'm interested in, not the places that tourists see." "You're in the right place. Ms. Jenny is a customer-oriented person. She has something for everyone." "Good, then I won't delay." Satisfied with his cunning, Buck climbed down from his high chair. "I'm afraid you're not going to make it tonight." The bartender stopped him. "Why not?" "It's Mrs. Jenny's day off. Her deputy is there in her place, but he doesn't handle such individual matters." "It's okay. I'll try to make a deal." Buck was met by a friendly young man who spoke good Russian. "What can I do for you?" "I need Jeannie," Buck said kindly, but at the same time demanding. "Mrs. Jenny is off today, but I assure you, you can trust me completely," the young man answered without the slightest embarrassment. "I'm a friend of Jenny's, and I'd like to talk to her personally." The smile on the boy's face was replaced by disbelief. Then Buck pulled out his phone and showed him some pictures of Jenny with her parents, with him and Selena. "Okay, I'll explain how to get to her house." The young man agreed slightly uncertainly. 10 minutes later, Buck was speeding down the highway to the ocean in a rental car. She was even more beautiful. The light tan and local clothes suited her well. Buck admired her as she recovered from his appearance. "Hello, Jenny." He wanted to run to her, grab her in his arms and kiss her until she collapsed in his arms and answered him. "Hello, Buck." Jenny was struggling with contradictory feelings. She wanted to throw herself at his neck and chase him away, but instead she asked, "How did you find me?" "It was easier than waiting for the day I could see you." "You waited a long time." "I'm sorry. I'll tell you everything and explain everything, if you let me." They talked into the evening. Jeannie started crying now and then laughing, then crying and laughing again. Buck hugged her, comforted her, kissed her and laughed. A worried Kahaya looked into the living room from time to time and didn't know what to do. Finally, unable to bear it, she ran after her husband and excitedly asked him to observe the guest. One look was enough for Surya to realize everything. He gently put his arm around her shoulders and drew her away from the drawing room door. "My dear, it's as clear as a palm. It is our mistress's lover, from whom she fled here, and he found her. I don't think you should go to work tomorrow morning, and leave early today. Don't disturb the lovers." Kahaya didn't believe it, but when she returned to the living room to ask when dinner would be served, her mistress Jeannie was passionately kissing the man who had arrived. 5 years later. "Tell me, Buck, does yours squawk over the kids like mine does? Even I can only play with my own son under her supervision. But first, I have to shower, shave, and use odorless antiseptic on my hands." Edward grunted unhappily and sipped a little beer from his glass. "I even started drinking less because, you see, it's bad for the baby to smell your breath." "What's the smell?" "With a glass of beer. And the stronger stuff. I can't remember when I've had one." "Selena's understandable. Your son's been too hard on her. That's why she's worried about him." Buck looked for Jeannie. Her spouse was snoozing peacefully in the chaise lounge, leaving the care of the twins to the grandparents. Selena and Kahaya were passionately discussing sunscreen for the children, keeping a wary eye on Selena's son and Kahaya's daughter. Mistress Jenny. Gurram came out onto the mini beach belonging to Jenny and Buck, with a wide smile as always. "Let's go to the table. The meat is ready." Everyone scurried about. Selena, shushing Edward, picked up her son and rushed towards the chala. Surya took his daughter by the hand and hugged his wife, heading towards the house. The twins followed, holding onto the long hem of their grandmother's skirt. Jenny and Buck were at the back of the small group. The man hugged his wife and tried to walk as slowly as possible. "Buck, do you want everyone waiting for us?" Jenny stopped. "Just a little." He pulled her against him and kissed her with a long kiss. Then, pulling away, he said, "How good it is that life has put everything in its proper place. How good it is that we are together. I love you. I love you too."
Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel. Like it, write comments if you like the story, and see you on the channel.